All right, it looks like everybody's in, everybody's ready to go.
Mike, the superintendent said he was having a problem getting in.
Let's see. Looks like everybody's in, everybody's ready to go.
Mike,
Let me, let's see, I don't see him yet.
can we ask people to mute their mics, please?
Sending this stuff over to him again now. Oh, here he is. Looks like he's coming in now, Paul.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell, you there?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
It's okay. All right, we'll get ready to go. I'd like to call the Cumberland School Committee to order on Thursday, May 14th at 7:09 p.m. In accordance with Governor Raimondo Executive Order of 20-25 dated April 15th, 2020, the school committee intends to conduct this meeting remotely. The public can participate in this meeting remotely, but not in person, by calling area code 646-558-8656. The webinar ID is 956-4047-5468, or join us at https://www.google.com. And it's Zoom, and you can find that information on our school department website to link to the meeting to watch it in Zoom. Next is our Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone can stand and we'll just do the pledge. I mean, sit while we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it
it
stands,
stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next is the approval of the agenda. Item number A, compliance with the governor's executive order 20-25 dated April 15, 2020. Discussion/vote on whether is public access to the meeting through adequate alternate means. Mr. Chandler, we have people that come in through the public side of the meeting, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I need a motion to approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Collins makes a motion to approve.
Second. Mrs.
Second
Reed.
by Mrs. Friedman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have it 7-0. Just please note for the record, all school committee members are present. All right, next is the consent agenda, the approval of minutes from the special meeting of April 22nd, 2020, the regular meeting of 4/23/2020. We have approval of executive minutes on April 23rd, 2020. Enrollment report of May 1st, 2020. School police report of April 1st, 2020. The school bus inspection report from May 1st, 2020. And the residency truancy report from 5/1/2020. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda or pull any items out. for this.
Motion to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve by Mr. Collins, seconded by Mr. Fiorello. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next is the report out of executive session, meeting on May 14, 2020. There were no votes taken during the executive session. I need a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
Motion to seal?
Motion to seal by Mr. Fiorello,
Second.
second by Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you all. All right, we have the superintendent's report. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. We have a lot of people on the meeting. And the first item that I'd like to share with everyone is the recognition of Cumberland's Teacher of the Year. As you know, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, every year right around this time, we ask our leadership team, all of the administrators in our schools in the district, to nominate a staff member that they feel is worthy of this recognition. As you know, we have a lot of outstanding professionals in the district, and so every year we ask the principals to share with us an individual in their school that they would support for Teacher of the Year. And we ask the principals to put in writing the rationale, the reasons why they have chosen the person that they have chosen. And usually it's like I know in some schools, all of the staff members identify the person that they feel is deserving of this recognition. So all of the principals share what they have written about the person that they are recommending for this prestigious honor. And we then have a difficult responsibility as a leadership team. We then decide the person who we feel we should nominate for this recognition. And I am pleased to announce this year's Cumberland Teacher of the Year. And it is Paula McMillan, a teacher at Cumberland Hill Elementary School. So congratulations to Paula. And I've asked Deb Malcolm, who had some really nice things to say about Paula, to share with us the things that, to share with all of you the things that she shared with the leadership team a few weeks ago, and resulted in Paula being nominated for this award. So Deb, would you please?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here. I'm going to summarize what we had written about Paula. And Paula joined our staff approximately 2.5 years ago as she transitioned from her role as a district technology coach to a 4th grade ELA teacher. She has served in her capacity as the ELA liaison for her grade level colleagues. She took on that responsibility with great ease and fidelity. In addition to her role on the ELA mapping team, Paula is a very talented teacher. She has a calm, positive demeanor and always supports the social emotional needs of the students in her classroom. She has participated in the school's target team and worked closely with mental health staff to address unique individual emotional needs of the students in her classroom. Throughout the 2019-2020 school year, Paula served as a technology resource for the entire school staff. She was always willing to support everyone with questions regarding Google Classroom, Google Forms, Kahoot, and creating online tools to support student learning. Paula has served as a resource and support for whole school assemblies and professional development days. As the district and state transitioned to distance learning, Paula served as a primary resource for both the school and district, in which she implemented and shared her wealth of knowledge with technology, resources, and the Google platform. Without being asked, Paula offered and recorded how-to videos and shared them with the district staff. She continues to do this as we enter our 7th week of distance learning. On Sunday, April 26th, she posted an email providing guidance for using a whiteboard for Google Meets, along with a tutorial on Kami extension with Google Classroom. She has served as a resource for myself as I continue to learn and navigate the virtual world in order to support the students and staff of Cumberland Hill. Paula has used much of her personal time answering staff emails, texts, and chats as she became the go-to staff member for many individuals. She is always responsive, whether it be nights or weekends, or as she is juggling motherhood with a toddler. When I shared that I was nominating Paula as the 2020 District Teacher of the Year with other members of the school staff, there was a unanimous yes. Members of the staff shared how supportive Paula has been prior to and throughout the distance learning experience. They cited her willingness to call or hold a virtual meeting to assist in step-by-step processes for various technology resources. And this has continued throughout our virtual learning. I am more than happy that she is a member of our team and our school family, and it was my honor to nominate her as our school educator of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Congratulations again, Paula. So as you all know, we generally have the person come to a school committee meeting and we give the person a plaque, and the plaque has actually already been delivered to Paula. Cindy Shabbat, my assistant, delivered the plaque to Paula today. I have a nice picture of Paula with her plaque and her little boy with her. And the plaque says, Cumberland School Department 2020 District Teacher of the Year, presented to Paula McMillan in recognition of your inspirational actions and excellence in educational leadership. She gets that plaque, and then there's another plaque with her name inscribed with all of the other Teacher of the Year winners that we hang proudly in the main foyer of the central office. So congratulations again, Paula, for your outstanding contribution to teaching and learning in the district. And it is well deserved. Congratulations, Paula.
Thank you.
I don't need, oh, there she is. There she is. She's on the screen there waving.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you. And I do have the plaque thanks to Cindy Shabbat. There it is. So
Congratulations, Paula.
thank you very much.
Well deserved. If I may move on, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you may.
Okay, so, this next item that I'd like to share with with all of you is very impressive. Cumberland High School has a National Merit Scholarship winner, and that's a pretty impressive honor. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. It is my pleasure to let the school committee and everyone in the Cumberland community know that senior Ian Horskamp Vinegar has earned the distinction of being a National Merit Scholarship winner. And just to give you a sense of how special this is and how unique this is, in my 12 years as a principal, 6 years as an assistant, and in the many years that I've been in the central office, we have individuals who get recommended for the National Merit Scholarship for their performance, not only for their performance in school, but specifically for their performance on the PSAT. We've had a number of students who have done exceptionally well and earned recognition, but there are very few winners. Like I would say in my 26 years as an administrator, there may have been 10 who have actually been winners. So this is pretty impressive. And let me just share a little information about this so that you can all appreciate how significant this award is. 1.6 million students take the PSAT. 50,000 with the highest PSAT scores qualify for recognition in the National Merit Scholarship Program. Of the 1.6 million and the 50,000 highest, 34,000 or 3% of the 1.6 million, 34,000 are recognized as commended scholars, and they can go on to become semifinalists. There are approximately 16,000 semifinalists. Semifinalists are the highest scoring entrants in each state. To be considered for a National Merit Scholarship, semifinalists must advance to finalist standing in the competition by meeting high academic standards. The next step in the process is to be a finalist. So Ian became a finalist. In February, 15,000 semifinalists are notified that they have advanced to finalist standing. And I am pleased to announce that Ian is a National Merit Scholarship Award winner. And in order to become an actual winner, the committee that makes the selection considers a lot of information, including their academic record, information about the school's curricula and grading system, certainly the performance on the PSAT, a school official's written recommendation, and other things are taken into consideration, like the student's activities and leadership. So Ian is a winner of the National Merit Scholarship, which is incredibly impressive. Less than 1% of the 1.6 million students who take the PSAT actually earn this distinction. In addition to being an outstanding student and in the 1% of all the students who take the PSAT and all of the other positive things it takes to become a winner, Ian is also on the first team all-state swim team, first team. And he is, I forget, they have some distinction for those athletes who are the most outstanding performers. So he is also being considered for that. So I don't know if Ian is on the call, but I just wanted everyone to know how really impressive this distinction is. We're really proud of Ian. I think Cumberland, the town of Cumberland, certainly Cumberland High School, should be really proud that Ian has been bestowed this incredible honor. So congratulations to Ian for his outstanding performance. I don't know if he's here, so
He is.
congratulations, Ian.
He's
Thank you
on
very
the call.
much. Thank you very much,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Hey, congratulations. Is that now you're going to New Jersey
Institute of Technology.
Institute of Technology? Good for you. And didn't you in our call, Mr. Costa and I did a Google Meet with Ian, and didn't you say that you also, because of your performance, you earned some scholarship? Is that true? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I have some scholarship money going into NJIT also.
The academic
Oh, you're talking about the academic swimming?
Yes. Yeah. The academic. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I have some scholarship money from both academics and swim. Yeah. So I think I'll have some from purely academics from my academics at Cumberland High. I'll have some from the National Merit Scholarship, and I'll have some for my seat on their swim team. Yeah.
So congratulations. Clearly a well-rounded young man that can make all of us in Cumberland proud. So congratulations, Ian. Good for you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one more thing, if I
Go
may.
ahead. Go ahead.
I just, and this will only take a second. I just wanted to talk for a moment about, the planning that may have to, that is going to have to take place for the start of the new school year. As I've stated many times, the Superintendent's Association conducts meetings twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30. In those meetings, generally the Commissioner's office is represented. Many times the Governor's office is represented. In fact, the Governor has attended one of our meetings. And certainly, not only are we dealing with the distance learning issues and all that goes along with that, we have started to have conversations about what potentially the start of the new school year could be like. And as of right now, I can only tell you that, there is really no real, commitment to doing anything at this time, because I think it's premature. This, dealing with this pandemic is, not only does it change, weekly, it changes sometimes daily. And then when we first started this, seemed like it was changing by the hour. So there is going to be a lot of work to do. I think everyone has heard that, we believe that there is still going to be distance learning in effect when students and staff are expected to return for the start of the new school year. Things are going to be different, and it's going to require a tremendous amount of planning. But the thing is, like, we are uncertain about what the expectations will be. And of course, everyone is anxious to learn, what we're going to have to do in order to start the school year. But by all accounts, things are going to be very different. And all I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee, and everyone in the audience, I will keep you up to date. I got to believe that the Superintendent's Association is going to be one of the first places that the commissioner and the governor goes to share what the expectations are for the start of school. So I'll be sure to keep you in the loop as the information comes forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Superintendent, what will that do to our budget if we have to go to digital learning, busing, fixing buildings to accommodate classrooms for children?
Well, I think, I think there are lots of concerns around what the cost will be. I mean, like today, one of the superintendents, anticipated that given the requirements for cleaning the building, that we may need more custodial staff. How do you bus students to and from school and respect social distancing at the same time? How do you move 1,500 students in the high school at the same time? How do you eat lunch together? So all of these things have to be taken into consideration. And what about, physical education and those kinds of things? So there are lots and lots of things that are going to have to be worked out as we get closer to, it's going to be a busy summer, no question about it.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is reports of standing committees. Mr. Salvatore, payment of bills.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair, payment of bills was approved tonight in our fiscal meeting, 3-0, in the amount of $988,682.75. I'll make a motion for this committee for the passage.
Mr. Salvatore makes a motion to pass the bills in the amount of $988,682.75. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Waters. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next is fiscal management subcommittee update. Mr. Salvatore.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chair. Like I mentioned earlier, fiscal management subcommittee met today at 6 p.m. We did pass the payment of bills. There was not much for a business office monthly report as we've been going through budgetary hearings going on amongst us. But Mr. Prignato did mention that healthcare claims dropped to a run rate of about 400,000, which at this time we were expected to be at 800,000. So that I apologize, over 800,000, which right now is good, but we don't know what the future, holds for that down the line. Also, Mr. Chair, we'll be talking about a couple of resolutions. Tedesco Food Service, we are going to be in touch with. There may be, there's a commitment money-wise that is probably not going to be met, that we have to discuss at a later time. And I believe that was about the bulk of it right there, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Next is the Policy and Procedures Subcommittee update, Mr. Fiorello.
Yes, thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Policy and Procedures has not met. We are planning or hoping to meet one day next week. I will keep everybody in the loop on that. Mrs. Duncanson and I have had some discussions regarding a new policy on hiring practices, specifically because of the new state law on site-based development. So we're going to start getting the ball rolling on that. Also, I'll be proposing an amendment to the school committee stipend, which we were due for a substantial increase. Under the present fiscal restraints, I cannot see doing that. And I will be proposing that we push off the increase until fiscal year 22, which would take us completely out of fiscal 21, which would actually save, I believe Mr. Mitchell told me, a teaching assistant position. So I feel that we can't be asking the unions to forego increases, or anyone else for that matter, while we're getting a substantial increase ourselves. So that'll be coming up for discussion in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the Achievement and Communication Subcommittee update, Mrs. Friedman.
Yes, so we met on May 5th with one of the main topics being on getting an update on distance learning across the district. And Mr. Damana led that discussion. And I think, as many people know, we were able to transition pretty smoothly to distance learning based on some of the systems and organizational setup that we had in place prior to moving everything remotely. One of the biggest things that had to happen was making sure that students had access to a device. So the IT department has been working like crazy to make sure that students get access. The communication and efficiency across the district, I think, has probably increased while everybody has been working remotely. There's lots of communication with teachers and staff and administrators and students to make sure that everybody is doing okay. And the Rhode Island Department of Education is also closely involved. Mr. Damana meets with them 3 times a week, checks in by email every day. And I think if any of you have seen what's going on in other parts of the state, we are truly a leader in this in the distance learning space, and we're really thankful for that. We had some discussion around assessments of students. And how do we look at the end of 2020 going into the new school year? And RICAS, of course, was canceled, but we will still be doing assessments K through 8 for ELA and for math, so that the administrators and teachers can get a sense of where students are. We are not expecting students to be at the same place at the end of 2020 as they were at the end of 2019, but we have to know where they are so they can get what they need as we enter the fall of 2020. We also had a really good discussion with Dr. Santa about special ed and how we've been meeting the needs in that space. So all meetings, IEP meetings and everything are happening. Also, in some cases, some of these things are a little easier to do since we're doing it remotely, schedule wise. Sometimes it's hard for people to come together in person. So there are some silver linings to this. We have about 700 students in the special ed space across the district. And so there's individual learning plans and communication logs and service tracking and all kinds of stuff that needs to happen. And some, I think, innovative and creative solutions by teachers that are helping our students. We do know that our more profound and nonverbal students are the ones that are the hardest hit in this time. And our youngest students are, kind of the most challenged in this space. But the special educators, the teaching assistants, Dr. Santa's team are really doing a great job at trying to meet the needs of everybody across the district. Just a couple other things related back to grading at the K-8 level. There will be communications out to parents to let them know how the end of year grading will be happening so that there won't be any surprises in that space. And there's already been that communication on the high school side. A question was raised about how has attendance been for students and how has participation been? And there are in some cases kind of better attendance rates than it was previous when we were face-to-face. But if attendance is lacking, the building principals are reaching out to families and finding out what's going on. So we are ensuring that attendance and engagement is up. And then the second half of our discussion was around the budget. And Mr. Devana's team, we originally had a request in the budget to add 2 interventionists, to add 2 coaches, teacher coaches, to add 2 special ed educators. And of course, those things had to be removed from the budget as we're looking at where we are. So, as we are continuing to want to improve our achievement levels overall, it really is hard to do that when we're in the budget situation that we're in. And then on top of that, related to the budget, Rhode Island Department of Education also has some regulations that we are expected to adhere to. And most of those are related to curriculum. Even if we think we have a curriculum that we know is effective and we base it off of our outcomes, RIDE may say you need something else. So Mr. Devana is actually working with Senator Pearson on an appeal process for some of that. So there's more to kind of come in that space. But we will be continuing to meet as a subcommittee. Once we know the final budget for 2020, 2021, we will talk about that from an achievement perspective in this committee. And then, in about a month or so, we'll talk about how the year is wrapped up from distance learning and how to move forward and all of that. So it was a good meeting and there's lots going on. And as everybody knows, everybody is working like crazy to make this work. The students, the parents, a big thank you to all the parents who are homeschooling now. And the educators and the staff and the administrators. So there's a lot of good stuff going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Friedman. Next is the District Health and Wellness Subcommittee update. Mrs. Bernardo.
Yes, hi, thank you. Our committee has not officially had a meeting, but we have been corresponding through email. And basically what we're doing is we are really getting a sense of what kinds of health and wellness related things are going on throughout the schools. What are we doing for the students and families and even staff on the physical, emotional, mental, even nutrition level. And there's a lot going on. It's a lot of really great work. And I've been receiving some reports from some of the schools. A lot of the things the students are used to, such as their mindful moments, movement breaks, making sure kids are taking a time out to move around and take a break, because there's a lot more sitting, being virtual and not changing classes and moving buildings. So we're compiling all that information. Some of it is to celebrate it, because I think the work has been great. It's been outstanding. Also to share it, sometimes, schools do different things, and I think it's important for us to see what each individual school is doing. It could be something that could be of value to other people. And then also to include that in as part of our annual report. So that's what we're kind of working on right now, and we'll keep you posted on anything new. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bernardo. So this is the first of 2 public comments. So if anyone would like to speak to the school committee, make a public comment, you're welcome to do so. I ask that you either raise your hand or speak up a little bit so we can watch you. I'm looking at about 12 screens of people here that are logged on to the meeting. So if you would like to just state your name and we'll try to deal. Mr. Chandler, could you unblock them?
Yes, I've unmuted anybody that's on the phone that I can unblock.
Okay,
Councilman
so,
Kinch has a,
excuse me?
Councilman Kinch has a comment when you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Counselor.
I just wanted to take a second as the liaison to also congratulate Ms. McMillan for her accomplishments, especially, sharing her knowledge throughout the district. From what I've seen over my 2 years, it's a great accomplishment for her, considering that the high quality teachers we have through the whole district. And second, also, I want to recognize Ian to be a finalist out of 1.6 million and keep never mind a great academic record, but a high-end student athlete, truly remarkable as well. But over the couple years, I always said that most of the enjoyment I get at sitting at those meetings is the quality of our young people coming through, and this is no different. So thank you very much, and I will pass on.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience, but on Zoom here that would like to speak? Please just speak up your name so I can hear you. Okay, there is none at this time. So,
my hand up.
speak up, who's saying that?
Dan Pedro, 136 Abbott Run Valley Road.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Pedro.
So it's my understanding that the budget that's being proposed tonight has a cut of a 0.5 and a 0.8 music and art respectively. And that the plan is to go to a 6-day rotation at the elementary schools. So my question is, how is going to a 6-day rotation going to impact the budget if we still need to cover those classes as preps for the other teachers?
Mr. Superintendent or one of his administrators want to take that? Mr. Mitchell, you're muted.
Yeah, Mr. I don't, Mr. Adams, are we supposed to respond?
The committee doesn't have any obligation to respond to public comment. The purpose of public comment is for the public to share their thoughts on whatever topic they choose, whether it's on the agenda or not.
Well,
so there's no obligation by the committee to respond to public.
Right. So, I mean, so we can respond if we want to. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't violating the protocol in any way.
The danger becomes, Mr. Mitchell, that once you start responding, you could be responding to every single person. And I mean that with all due respect to the public, but just so the public is aware, this is a meeting of the Cumberland School Committee. Public comment is generally designed to give the public a voice in the process to provide their comment. Once you start getting into interchanges, I'm not, all I can do is say the words. How you guys handle is really up to the committee and up to you. But that's the purpose of public comment.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
I would just say, Mr. Pedro, certainly you can call Mr. Damana or me, and we can would be happy to explain. And it's 0.8 art and 0.5 music.
Right. All right. So I'll just expand on my comment then. We are already at an all-time low for arts in Cumberland. So if we're eliminating a 0.5 and a 0.8, which the school committee members at this point might not know, are 2 positions. So we would be eliminating 2 teachers, they'd be laid off. And of course that we never know how that's going to unfold if the elementary school teacher is actually going to be the one to be laid off, or if it's going to be a high school or middle school teacher, depending on seniority. And to put things in perspective, I mean, the reason that this is all happening is because community cannot sustain a schedule with the number of kids that we provide at community school. In Lincoln, at Central Elementary, which is what we compare to community all the time, we have the kids have phys ed, health, art, music, and library every single week. Now we're talking about going to music every 6 days to bring in more STEM time, which has been unclear what that actually means, if it's library or technology. If it's technology, I should hope that administration has gone to music and art and asked them how they could incorporate technology into their curriculum. Or use, if there is any time in their schedule, if they could use it as enrichment time for the students who need it. Let me see. And on a separate note, and I'll come back at the end, drama is also, as far as I know, been cut from the high school budget. Just so you know, we do have a retirement, and that's, I'm assuming, the reason that even got put on the radar. But we own a teacher who would be fantastic at this position. This is not something that would need to be outsourced. This is something that we have the perfect person to run this program in the building. So cutting the program like that when so many kids depend on it would be an absolute crime. And so anyway, I don't support any of these cuts, let alone. But I'll try to end on a high note, which is to also congratulate Mrs. McMillan on Teacher of the Year. For those of you who don't know, she is a product of the Cumberland School Department and a clef singer. So congratulations, Paula.
Thank you, Mr. Pedro. Is there anyone else could just speak up your name so I can recognize you?
Actually, yes, I do have a comment. Michelle McIntosh.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Yep, Michelle McIntosh, 119 Sleepy Hollow Drive, Cumberland. I have a question regarding school safety at the high school with the elimination of one of the dean positions, the elimination of the ISS position, and the elimination of one or more, I'm not quite certain, of school guidance. In the environment that we live in today, in a high school, the threat of violence is always present. And so how do we justify eliminating those positions when, in Mr. Mitchell's words from the other evening, this is a huge gamble? Are we willing to gamble with school safety? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak at this time? All right, I don't hear anyone speaking up, so we will move on to new business unless I've missed somebody. Oh, here we go. Well, why I lose my video there? Okay, so we're gonna move on to new business. Discussion and/or vote the fiscal year 2021 superintendent school budget. Mr. Salvatore, this was in your committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Like I mentioned, our fiscal committee meeting met earlier, and we did pass 3-0 to send this budget to the full committee so we can pass it over to the town. The amount was $73,302,777. And I would like to make a motion.
Mr. Salvatore makes a motion to approve the superintendent's budget of $73,302,777. Do I have a second for discussion?
Second for discussion?
Go ahead, Mrs. Freeman. She seconds it. Go ahead.
So just so that everyone understands the process, and Mr. Salvatore, correct me if I misspeak, but we have a total budget number in front of us that will now go to the town council, and they will approve or change.
No, Mrs. Freeman, just to correct you, it goes to the finance director.
Okay.
He gives it to the mayor. The mayor makes a recommendation to the town council.
Yes.
either affirm it or change it. Go
Right.
ahead.
And then, thank you. And then it comes back to the school department. So we will then get the final amount. And then at that point, there'll be a lot of additional work that happens. There's some moving pieces here in terms of funding and aid and, implications from COVID-19. But we will then bring it back and then be working our way through the very details of the budget that will get to our end result. So we have this budget that's in front of us, or we have a budget number in front of us, but we won't know for sure what our cuts may or may not be until we get even a little further down in this process. So, I mean, is Mr. Salvatore, is it an accurate statement to say that we will continue to be working on the details of this once we know what our final budget number is?
That is correct, Mrs. Friedman. The only thing, and maybe I'm just crossing my T's and dotting my I's, the town council cannot make any changes to the actual budget items listed. They cannot say, we want more teachers here or there.
Right.
They can make a recommendation, but they do point us our appropriation. Oh yeah, we're really gonna have time once we get it back from the town for us as a school committee to hear more input from the public.
Yep.
And even the town council and the mayor would, I'm sure, like to hear input from the public as well. But we will have time to modify this budget.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mrs. Waters.
I have one question for Mr. Prignano that I didn't think to ask you earlier. I'm sorry. Regarding the fund balance, there's been a lot of discussion around the fund balance. And right now we are stating in our budget that we'll use $1 million of our fund balance. You've said in the past that we're able to use more fund balance. I recognize you don't recommend it, but we are able to use it since our policy is 2%. My question is, if we do want to use more fund balance, do we need to state that in this budget? Or is that something we can determine at a time to use more fund balance if we want to?
Mr. Prignano, could you answer that?
Well, your fund balance, yeah, your fund balance, we're treating fund balance as another source of funding in the budget. So you could change the use of fund balance amount up or down at some time before we pass the final budget.
Before we pass, that's my question, before we pass the final budget.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I was just advised that I did say the wrong number. It's $73,202,777.
Right, yeah, I got that message as well, Mr. Salvatore, thank you.
Thank you.
Who else? Mr. Collins, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I have a couple questions regarding the music position that is being cut. I just was looking for some clarification around that position and how that 0.5 that is going to be eliminated, how that time on the schedule for practical purposes is going to be filled. And I don't know if Mr. Demano is on here to answer, or if anybody else, or even if that's been determined yet.
Mr. Mitchell, unmute yourself.
Mr. Demano, can you please unmute?
I'm here. Sorry, I had to take a call, another parent issue. Go ahead.
All right. So, Mr. Collins, Mr. Demano and his team have been working on a schedule that would be more efficient. I mean, we're in a situation where we have to find savings wherever we can. So he and his team have developed this schedule that fulfills all of the BEP requirements time-wise. You can direct the question to Mr. Demano and he can answer in more detail.
I don't know if you heard. Yeah, I don't know if you had heard it, but what I had asked was, and somebody from the public had actually just asked this, but I had actually had this in my notes anyway. So a 0.5 position is going to be cut from community, I believe. So that 0.5, what would have otherwise been a full-time position, what are they going to fill for practical purposes, curriculum-wise? What is going to go in place of that 0.5?
So what's going to happen is it's not, the cut isn't directly going to impact community per se. What happens is when we look at the schedules across our elementary schools, the 5 elementary schools share itinerants. And every budget season, what we do is we routinely go through our schedules to see if we're operating very efficiently, if teachers have open blocks, if when we did our scheduling, did we maximize our staff efficiently? When we reviewed it during this particular budget season, that was particularly difficult. I'm tasked with doing that very exercise and really, uncovering different things that we could do as a district. One of the things that we found was we could operate a bit more efficiently if we went to a 6-day rotation across all elementary schools, which would equate to in a 6-day rotation, 3 days of physical education, 1 day of art, 1 day of music, 1 day of STEM. So the itinerants art, music, and STEM would be 1 day each in a 6-day rotation, and the PE 3 times. But because PE has a federal, state guidelines, state regulations around the amount of minutes. Right now, we have what's called an AB week scheduling, where we do it over the span of 2 weeks. We have to get in a certain amount of minutes of PE. So 1 week they have it 3 times already, and then the following week they have PE twice to meet the state's requirements. So by moving to the 6-day rotation, we meet all the PE regs. We made our schedules across the elementary schools a little bit more efficient, which when you shake that out, it led to a reduction in whatever that music and art cut was, 0.5 to 0.8, in order to fulfill all of those blocks across the elementary schools in our district. That's about as simplistic as I can explain it. And again, the exercise is in operating efficiently. We make the recommendations, we talk about it, and that's what was decided to make the list.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the school committee have a comment or a question? Go ahead, Mr. Fiorello, and we'll come back to Mr. Collins.
Yeah, I just want to point out that, again, we're looking at the deadline for layoffs. The governor had talked about extending that deadline to help all the school districts out to July 1st. And there was even talk that at that point, it might get extended again. The governor decided not to do that. She left us with the same layoff notice. So we have to lay off people now if there's any chance that we need to lay them off. So, and like, as Mrs. Friedman said, we're going to look at this budget again in a few weeks after we know what the town's actually doing, what other revenue sources might be coming from the state or even the federal government with COVID savings. And then we will decide at that point what we want to do if we want to spend a little more surplus. Our policy actually doesn't say 2% of the surplus. It says 2% of unrestricted surplus. And I would say about half of our surplus is actually restricted for medical, Blue Cross claims, an emergency fund for healthcare, those kinds of things. So we need to really look at how much we're willing to do. Plus, with as many one-time dollars that we're spending in this coming budget, we need to be really mindful of what's going to happen if what happens the following year. We don't know what kind of position the town's going to be in. We could be in the same point of getting level funded. We have no idea what the future holds, and we need to be very, very conservative with our projections. That being said, also, I'd just like to add that I know everybody's heard about elementary music, because I've heard about that from more parents than anything else, but no one's talking about the TAs at the preschool level, the kindergarten TAs, our district, as well as a lot of other positions that are being cut. These are all very important positions, and we're trying to do the best we can.
Mr. Collins, again, go ahead.
I do have a question about the in-school suspension. Now, the in-school suspension is a very important position because it prevents out-of-school suspensions, which the state kind of monitors. And at the same time, it keeps kids who are limbo. Is there any concern, Mr. Mitchell or Mr. Damana, or I don't know if Mr. Costa is on the call either. Is there any concern that in the absence of in-school suspension, there's going to be reluctance to put kids out of school suspension or perhaps keep them in the classroom? which may be detrimental in other ways? Or is there a plan to replace the in-school suspension with some other sort of intervention?
So if I may answer that question as best I can, I think I sort of get teased because everybody knows my position on the deans at the high school. You know, the high school leadership model, the organizational model leading that high school. I mean, that is something that Dr. Thornton and I created when we started working here together. So I feel very strongly that we need to have a safe and orderly environment at the high school. I mean, the high school is the flagship, and we got to make sure that the high school is running efficiently and that there is a safe and orderly environment. We are unfortunately in a really difficult financial situation. So, you know, I know that people are probably tired of me saying this, but I got to say it publicly. And I'm going to say it probably many, many more times before we're done with this budget cycle. And I get teased about this too. Not only do I not want to eliminate any positions, I think we could make a case based on data to add positions. And you know, administrators making requests are reasonable in what they ask for because they're asking for things based on data. Nobody wants to eliminate music. Nobody wants to eliminate art. Nobody wants to eliminate a dean. Nobody wants to eliminate TAs. So the problem is when faced with a budget gap, difficult decisions have to be made. And we're going to watch that very closely. We've had conversations with the high school administration, and right now we believe that we can sustain the safe and orderly environment that has been established there. So that's our goal. I'm just frustrated that we're in a position that we have to eliminate these important positions. So we're going to be watching that very closely, Mr. Collins. And who knows, again, as we've discussed, you know, this is a fluid process. There are still lots of decisions that have to be made between now and the time that the final budget is adopted. And who knows what will happen between now and that time.
Well, anyone else from the school committee that'd like to speak on this matter? I mean, this budget is no different than any other budget we've done in the past, where we've had to negotiate with the town in regards to the funding for the school district. I would just say that, you know, when we get our appropriation from the town council and the mayor signs the budget, that we'll be looking at this again. And I know some of our school committee members have talked about, you know, reducing the fund balance that we're holding right now. Even at 2%, the fund balance would be about $1.5 million left. And if we're using $1 million today, what's left for next year? The problem with the fund balance is you want to use it for one-time items and not ongoing items like teachers and so forth, because the money runs dry. And I know there's been many discussions with the mayor right now in regards to this budget, back and forth with the business manager and the superintendent, trying to come up with something that's workable for the town and can help the school district. But for our school committee members, when we get to this decision again to approve the budget, we reconcile with the town. We have to remember that we don't know what's going to happen come September. If we're going to have to remodel buildings immediately to separate children, double the buses because we need to have children separated. You know, we may need that money come September, and I'm all for restoring positions, and I've advocated for positions in the past, but I believe we should wait till sometime in August when we have a better idea from the state and the federal government how we have to conduct the next school year. So with that said, is there any other school committee members that have a question in regards to this budget? Mr. Fiorella, I see your hand raised. No, okay. All right.
Thank
Mrs.
you, Mr.
Waters,
Chair. So we have a motion.
hold on, Mrs. Waters, were you gonna ask a question?
I just have a comment. I was going to save it to the end, but I'll just make it now that we find ourselves in these situations year after year where we're reactive to this budget, and we need to make some tough choices earlier in the process. It keeps coming down to the last minute. I think we need to like really take a look going forward all through next year. We have to assume we're not going to get any more money for at least the next 3 to 5 years. Our town is in a certain situation where they're hurting just as much as we are. So we really need to be a lot more proactive in what we're doing and not put ourselves behind the 8 ball year after year after year.
I understand, Mrs. Waters, but our funding does come from the town, so. I appreciate it.
Exactly. It's not a surprise. It's not a surprise what our number is going to be. So why are we constantly putting ourselves in this situation? I'm just advocating that we
understand.
Hard look.
All right. So we have a motion by Mr. Salvatore and a second by
Yes.
Mrs. Friedman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Who's opposed? Mr. Collins, you're opposed? So the budget at this time to send to the town passes 6-1. Thank you. Next is discussion regarding the 2021 personal decisions related to the COVID-19. Mr. Superintendent, you want to handle that or the human resource?
Mrs. Duncanson will be discussing that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep,
So,
go right ahead.
Mr. Mitchell and I asked that this be on the agenda just to ask for your for planning purposes. We are looking at next year, and I've prepared staffing for next year in accordance with the budget as it is now. As we've discussed multiple times tonight, we are not 100% sure what September is going to look like in our district or in the state or in the country. And we're not 100% sure what education will look like in September. And so with the June 1 date coming up, we need to make any cuts. We're looking for the temperature as to whether or not the list that you want us to present you, if you would like us to prepare for a 100% virtual environment come September, or if you would like us to prepare the budget the way that it currently is prepared for a traditional educational setting. If we do not provide notices by June 1 and vote on those notices, we do not have options come August. Are we in a situation that we were not anticipating, but we probably should have at least considered given the current situation? And so we would be remiss if we did not bring this up to you and give you at least the option to give us guidance that I would then prepare the next meeting for you.
Well, Mr. Superintendent, and I'm not sure how the other school committee members feel. Do you want to do a workshop on this next week and to give Mrs. Duncanson time either way we go? I mean, obviously, if we were in a virtual learning situation, staff changes versus a, as the president says, he believes the school children will be back, but I'm not sure what, our governor will do here.
So right now, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Duncanson.
So right now, the assistant superintendent, the special ed director, and the superintendent and the educators in the district, I'm not an educator, are looking at what September is going to look like. So they're already doing that work, but in order to preserve your options for September, we need to provide notices if that comes to the way. So.
Mr. Mitchell, do you have any idea time frame when you think your work would be done for a recommendation to us?
You know, I don't, you know, I'm not exactly sure when it will be done, but certainly I think we need to have to start the conversation. And as I mentioned earlier, the challenging position that we're in is trying to predict what is going to happen. And I think for that very reason, we need to be in a position to respond one way or another in the event that, you know, we find out, for example, that we're going to be locked into more social distancing and more distance learning, and and all of the potential impact that can have. So I think, we're hoping that things will be as normal as possible. I think everyone is in agreement that it's not going to be, and I think we need to be in a position to respond if things are not. So to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, things have been pretty busy with budget, and although we have been starting to conversations about what the future may bring. So I would suggest that because we have a meeting in 2 weeks. I mean, the deadline is June 1st. We should probably have a meeting, if not next week, at the beginning of the following week, so that we're prepared to make a recommendation to the committee. So we'll start putting our heads together and solidifying some of the options and things for the school committee to consider sooner rather than later.
Mr. Superintendent, I would schedule a workshop for the 21st, because on the 25th, Monday, is Memorial Day. So that it doesn't give Mrs. Duncanson a lot of time if we decide to vote. And I would schedule that as a vote as well.
Okay, right. A week from today.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll get to work on it.
All right. I'll let the school committee, all the school committee members are here, and we'll figure out a time. I'll poll them in regards to a time that works best for them next Thursday, and we'll have that discussion and vote in regards to potential layoffs. All right, thank you. Next is discussion and a vote to approve homeschool request for the 2019-2020 school year. Mr. Mitchell or who wants to take this one?
There is, I'm sorry, that was homeschool request, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, there is one in the drive. I would recommend approval.
Superintendent recommends approval for the homeschool request that's in the drive. Do I have a
motion to approve?
Motion by Mr. Collins.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fiorello. Any discussion on this?
Aren't our kids homeschooling right now? I know a lot of the parents feel like they're homeschooling.
Right,
So
they all are. We have a motion and a second by Mr. Fiorello. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-1. Next on the agenda, discussion and a vote for the revised 2019.
Wait, I'm sorry, Mr. DeMonica, but from purposes of the vote, you said 7-1?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. 7-0.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Thank you for correcting me. Next is discussion and a vote for the revised 2019-2020 school calendar. Mr. Mitchell.
The only reason, Mr. Chairman, that we put this on the agenda is we just really wanted to, nothing has changed. We just wanted to memorialize the current calendar for historical purposes. So we just wanted to make sure that that the school committee approved the calendar as a result of all of the work that we've been doing. So there is nothing on there that you don't know about. We just, for the record, wanted to make sure that the school committee approved it. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I need a motion to approve the revised 2019-2020 school calendar.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Collins,
Second.
second by Mrs. Friedman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 7-0. Thank you. Next is SCR 2020-04, a resolution defer reduction of state aid for education. I had asked that this get put on the agenda. Just let me get my computer back up and running. And what this is the Cumberland Town Council adopted basically the same one to send to the legislature to talk about the funding because of the hardships that we've had here. And we've asked them that they defer any action by the legislature in state aid to education until the fiscal year 2020. The town council adopted this a few weeks ago and it was sent to us. So that's the reason why it's in our drive. I'd like to see us approve this, send it off to the legislature like the town council did, and hope that they listen to us considering what's going to happen to Cumberland with the state aid reduction. So I need a motion.
A motion to approve that.
Motion by Mr. Collins,
Second.
second by Mrs. Waters. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Next is SCPR 5 2020-08 Ride Stage 2 Submission Invoice Torado. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, fiscal did have this on our agenda. And it passed 3-0 for the payment, 2 invoices for Torado totaling $52,605. And I'd like to make a motion for this committee.
Mr. Salvatore makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion? I would just like to note this completes the payments to Torado Associates for the stage 2 application that RIDE tentatively approved for us. Now we just have to wait for the Board of Ed to tell us what the, if they'll approve it and what the reimbursement rate will be. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Thank you. Next is SCPR 5 2020-09 Ride Stage 2 Submission Invoice for Colliers. Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have this in our fiscal meeting and it did pass 3-0 to send it to the full committee. This resolution is in the amount of, there's 2 invoices in the amount of $24,389.35. I would like to note for the record that there was some situation with the payment, overpayment on some of these invoices, but Mr. Prignano has spoken to the town finance director, Mr. Ray Chauvin. We'll get this straightened out. Am I correct to say that, Mr. Prignano?
The town paid the November invoice already, and it was approved by the school committee in one of its recent meetings. So I think the town paid it a second time. So I'm taking a credit on this April invoice. I'd just like to also point out so people know, this is not coming out of the school general fund dollars. This is all coming out of bond capital projects and construction. It's not like this money could be reallocated to save TAs or that sort of thing. I just think people should know that.
Thank you, Mr. Prignano. That is a good point. That's also with the Torado resolution and this Colliers resolution.
Yes.
Correct. So I'd like to make a motion for the payment of these 2 invoices in the amount again of $24,389.35. Thank you.
Mr. Salvatore makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Waters. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes
Mr.
have it.
Chair, Mr. Chair,
Go
can I
ahead.
ask a question
Sure.
just about RIDE in general? So do we have any indication on if they are still working on this at RIDE based on the COVID pandemic?
No, they did a lot of work remotely, like all other school districts have. The application was submitted. They had questions, in regards to for the school department to get answered. They were answered. We were told we received approval from RIDE of about $79 million out of the 83 that was approved, that we had, the voters had approved. It's now sent with RIDE's recommendation to the Board of Ed, and the Board of Education will decide if the project moves forward, and we will find out what the reimbursement rate will be. Speaking with the mayor was assured, I think, by the state treasurer, that the town would know exactly what the reimbursement rate would be before we put a shovel in the ground and move forward. So now we're just waiting. Mr. Pregnano did say they did meet the other day. We're not sure of the outcome. So the superintendent will get a letter, probably an email from them, telling them exactly what it is, and we'll get that reimbursement rate, and we'll know if we're over the 50% hurdle, and then we'll work with the town to see if we can make this happen. So we're past one hurdle, we just need one more vote. That answer your question, Mrs. Waters?
It does. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, have it 7-0. Thank you. Next is personal recommendations.
Yes. There are a number of items tonight. First up are retirements. I request the advice, and you want them all to get each section as a group?
Please. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Retirements. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the retirement of Ann McCaffrey, grade 4 teacher at Ashton Elementary, effective June 30th, 2020, after 32 years of service. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the retirement of Darlene Young, paraprofessional at North Cumberland Middle School, effective June 30th, 2020, after 11 years of service.
All right, we need a motion on the two retirements, Ian McCaffrey and Darlene Young. Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Collins, seconded by Mr. Fiorello. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you to both of them, but Mrs. Caffrey, 32 years is a long time working
Mr.
for the
Chair?
school district. Yes.
Is Ms. McCaffrey or Ms. Young on the phone?
I'm not sure. Mr. Mitchell, will they be getting the proverbial bag as well, for their retirement?
I'm sure that they're looking forward to that, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
yeah. Thank you. All right, Mrs. Duncanson, next resignations.
Second, I have two resignations. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Lauren Burkinski, kindergarten teacher at JJM Cumberland Hill School, effective June 30th, 2020. And I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Crystal Lee, grade 3 teacher at JJM Cumberland Hill School, effective June 30th, 2020.
Need a motion on the two resignations?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Collins, second by Mr. Fiorello. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Next, we have a leave of absence.
I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the personal leave of absence for Erica Beelu, special education teacher at community school for the 2020-2021 school year.
We have a motion. We have a leave of absence. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Collins,
Second.
second by Mrs. Waters. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
That
Next
is all I
is-
have tonight.
All right, thank you. We'll talk to you next week on that. And finally, we have comments from the public. If you'd like to speak, please, not at once, everyone just say your name so I can hear. I have too many screens open here to see who's waving their hand or something. So if you would like to speak, please state your name for the record.
The ones I can unmute, I've unmuted. Paul.
All right, so Go ahead. Anyone that want to speak before we move on?
I'll say one more thing. Dan Pedro, 136 Abbott Run Valley Road. Just in response to a couple of comments. My family owned a business, ran a business for 25 years, and we never once laid anybody off. We turned in uniforms. We took our name out of the yellow pages back in the day. Okay, talk about insult to injury. The fact that you're cutting on advertising when you don't have money to pay employees. But when you find a team that works for you and does the job that you need them to do, you do everything to retain them, and laying them off just gives them an excuse to walk away. So that's my comment about that. The comment was made about, everybody brings up the music teacher, the art teacher. We're talking about certified core educators. There's no doubt that teachers' assistants are important, but they are uncertified staff that we can replace basically any teacher. I could get you 5 to 10 next week if you needed them. When you have certified core instructors that are doing more than their share for the students of this town, you want to do everything you can to retain them. So I guess that's where I'll leave it for tonight. I do appreciate all the work you've done. I will be in touch with Superintendent Mitchell and Assistant Superintendent Damana to hopefully get some clarifying answers on the schedule moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? I don't hear anyone speaking up. So we'll move on to the school committee comments, school liaison reports. Anyone from the school committee have any comments that they would like to make tonight?
I do.
Go ahead.
So as the parent of a high school senior, there's been so much grief for so many things lost, but we try to look for the silver linings, and there's a few. I want to commend Mr. Costa and his team and the senior advisors, Ms. McIntosh and Mr. Crowley, for trying to come up with creative ways to fill the holes. Now, the hole of losing prom and graduation and everything can never be filled completely, but there's some really good work. So on Tuesday, I will go.
Reluctantly?
I would go on Tuesday and watch my son walk across the stage. And I'm thankful for that. And I also want to thank the community for this Adopt a Senior thing that someone created. And so if you don't know about it, if you go onto Facebook, there's an Adopt a CHS Senior page, and seniors are being posted and people are adopting them and creating gift bags for them. And it's just great. So I just want to thank everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Freeman. I know that's hard for you and many of the children and their families out there that are going to graduate, move forward. This isn't what I don't think the town of Cumberland wanted for the school children to happen. And, I think I'm 63 years old and I've never heard of a graduation like this happening other than probably during World War I and World War II. And it's hard, but as I'll say later in my speech, I hope the children of the class of 2020 are not forgotten at the entrance to the school, going forward. So, Mr. Collins, go ahead.
This is an unoriginal thought. This is paraphrased from something I had read, but this year's graduating class came into the world. They were born right after 9/11, and they're exiting high school during another global unprecedented event. So, their lives have been up and down from the day they were born. And in the middle, you have a humongous recession and war, and they persevered. So they're young, but they're resilient, and they don't even know how resilient they are because they've lived through, 18 years of very trying times in some ways. So I wish them all the best, Karen's son and anybody else in attendance. It's going to be fun. It'll be a fun ride, and congratulations. Although you're not getting the walk across the stage, it's the next step that matters the most, and I wish them all the best.
Great, thank you. If there's none other, I'd just like to acknowledge Cumberland Police Officer Michael Petracca, who got injured a week ago, protecting our schools. This is the second incident at the high school that we've had recently in regards to things that shouldn't be happening up there, and I wish him very well. I hope he gets a speedy recovery, and thank you to the rescue and the EMS people and his fellow police officers from Lincoln and Cumberland that moved very quickly to get up to the high school to help this police officer. And no one knows when you put that uniform on and go to work today whether you're going to come home. And this is just another incident of something happening to a police officer that I'm thankful for, that we have him here in Cumberland. So I wish you a speedy recovery, and thank you very much for looking out for our school district. Anyone else? Hearing none. Mr. Mitchell, do we have executive session?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
I need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Fiorello, unmute yourself. Makes a
Motion to
adjourn. Second, but motion by Mr. Collins, second by Mr. Fiorello. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night,
Good night,
all.
everybody.
Good night.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night, everybody.